So if you're playing along at home in the race to become the Democratic nominee, about 3 weeks ago they had the second Democratic debate, and I predicted that Joe Biden was going to more or less have an easy path to the nomination. I still sort of say that, but if you've been listening to my analysis of the race all the way back to the beginning, Joe Biden is struggling a little, and he's struggling a little for the things that I pointed out, that I doubted his ability to win the race way back at the beginning when I heard he was going to be running for president. Two things I thought he was going to struggle with. One, he wasn't going to be sufficiently woke enough for today's Democratic Party. You know, the Twitter crowd he was not going to be acceptable or palatable to the Twitter crowd. He's not. But there's still a bedrock community within the Democratic Party who consider themselves moderates, or at least more moderate than the Twitter wing of the Democratic Party. So he's not struggling as much with the wokeness as I thought he was going to be. Two, he's a gaffe factory. That's starting to reassert itself. Now, when Joe Biden ran for president a few times in the past, and he flamed out really quickly. Why? Because of gaffes. Gaffes did him in. And the gaffes are starting to come again. If you've been paying attention to the last month, I don't know how closely any of you follow this. I pretty much follow it daily. It was really funny. He had a couple of classic Joe Biden gaffes in the last 3 weeks. What's the best one is poor kids are just as talented, just as smart as white kids. That's really funny. And then the other one that I thought was a classic Joe Biden gaffe was we choose truth over facts. Classic. Awesome stuff. Awesome. Classic Joe Biden gaffes. Now, in the overall scheme of things, I consider those relatively benign. I don't think those are any big deal. They're obviously just slips of the tongue. But I'm not sure that's how everybody else is gauging it, partially because of age. And I think that's playing into, those are relatively harmless slips of the tongue. I say stupid stuff like that all the time. You know, I don't think it's any big deal, but they're starting to affect him more than you would suspect. And I think that's people are starting to go, wait, is he really so electable? He's old, and he's starting to say, and Trump, I think Trump intuitively knows that of the main people who have the chance to win the nomination, Biden is by far the most electable. Trump goes after Biden more than anybody else. And you notice he doesn't say a lot about Elizabeth Warren. Now, if you listen to my analysis after the Democratic nomination, I said there was going to be a clear second place person, and that was Elizabeth Warren. So I said that 3 weeks ago, that she was going to become the strong person, second place, and another possible contender for the nomination. She is going to have struggles. Now that that's clear to everybody else, watch this play out. Because there's a certain type of moderate Democrat who wants to beat Trump more than anything else, who's now got alarm bells going off. Because they don't want Elizabeth Warren winning that nomination. And I'll tell you why. Of those two, if I just tried to choose between those two, Joe Biden, gaffes and all, with all the silliness of how he can sometimes be, between those two, he's far more electable than she is. She's got a couple of really big problems in terms of electability. One, she's very similar to Hillary Clinton, only a much worse version of the same thing. Because one, she's a woman just like Hillary Clinton. Now, I don't consider that any big deal. It's not an issue to me to vote for a woman president. But there are some people, just in terms of electability, there's some people who still think that's a big issue. If that's a big issue, she's every bit as much of a woman as Hillary Clinton was. She really is. She's every bit as much of a woman. But far more important, in terms of likability, everybody noticed that Hillary Clinton had a problem with charisma because she had this sort of school marm, high school principal persona that kind of bothered almost everybody, even her supporters. Elizabeth Warren has the exact same personality, only a much worse version of it. Honestly, she reminds me of my school superintendent. My school superintendent had that exact same persona. It's a much worse version of the same problem that Hillary Clinton had. Much worse. I don't think she's going to play well nationally at all. At all. Now, the people who think she will, not coincidentally, are committed progressive liberals. And they really like Elizabeth Warren. But they're kind of overlooking or not really noticing that she isn't very likable. So I don't see how she grows her support from here. If Bernie Sanders drops out of the race, then Elizabeth Warren has to, then I'd put all my money on Elizabeth Warren. Because then, see, here's the thing with Joe Biden. Joe Biden is roughly at 30% with his gaffes. I think that's his floor. If that's his floor, he still can win the nomination pretty easily with 30%, as long as this configuration holds throughout the race. In other words, if Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Kamala Harris all stay in the race till the end, then he can easily win with 30% of the vote. Easily. So if that's his floor, he's still, as far as I'm concerned, he's still the odds-on favorite to win the nominee. And I've seen nothing to lead me to believe that his support will go past that point. You know, a lot of people have a core support. Trump said that himself. He could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, and, you know, so certain types of Trump supporters, it would take a lot for them to abandon Trump. It looks like there's a core support for Joe Biden that's roughly 30%. That's going to be really hard for Elizabeth Warren to overcome unless Bernie Sanders drops out of the race. Look for pressure on Bernie Sanders to drop out of the race, but I don't foresee him doing that. Doesn't strike me as a thing. And when he ran against Hillary Clinton, he stayed until the end. If he stays until the end, that greatly diminishes her chance of being the nominee. So look for pressure on him. But here also greatly diminishes her chance of being the nominee. Now that it's clear that she is after Joe Biden, she's the next most likely candidate, now you're going to see all her enemies that you didn't see, because she set off alarm bells. If I were a moderate Democrat, well, I am a moderate Democrat. If I were a moderate Democrat who was working in politics, I'd be strategizing to do her in immediately. I'd be freaked out, because I don't necessarily think Elizabeth Warren can beat Trump. Relatively certain Joe Biden could. I'm not saying he will, but I'm pretty certain he could. I don't think Elizabeth Warren can necessarily. I mean, in the final analysis, electability is it's a bit of a not really a real thing, because when it's Democrat versus Republican, you know, there's the Republican is going to win all the red states, the Democrat is going to win all the blue states, and really they're only competing for about 7 or 8 states. You know, Ohio, Florida, Virginia, blah, blah, blah. So in the final analysis, basically anybody can win an election the way we are polarized today. But of those two, Joe Biden is far more electable than Elizabeth Warren because of the issues that I said. And Trump will have a field day with her. He will have a field day with making fun of her endlessly. And the media, despite wanting to put its thumb on the scale completely for Elizabeth Warren, will play along a little bit. They always do. They always do. They'll play along a little bit. If she does things that are blatantly ridiculous, they'll start having fun at her expense, and it will cost her dramatically. And that's what I foresee if she becomes the nominee. She's going to really struggle in terms of likability, and she'll do things like her, you know, where she had her test to prove that she's not really an Indian. You know, she'll do stupid things like that. And her beer summit, where she's like, you know, I really want a brewski. Yeah, that's really convincing. You're really down to earth, homegirl. You got us going. You know, she's got a lot of little anomalies like that Trump is going to have a field day with. A field day with. Joe Biden doesn't really struggle like that. Put it this way. If Joe Biden were just a little bit more of a competent human being, if he exuded competence, Joe Biden would easily be the next president. Because he has a really, really, really good political personality. Like, honestly, he's really pretty likable. I grew up in New York, okay? I knew a lot of guys like Joe Biden, just regular kind of Irish guys hung out at the bar that everybody knew and everybody liked. I knew a lot of guys like that. He's one of those type of guys. He's just a down-to-earth, easygoing personality that everybody just kind of naturally goes, oh, yeah, it's Joe. Oh, that's cool. Joe's cool. I like Joe. Even Laura Ingraham, I heard her say she likes Joe Biden. Honestly, I heard her say, yeah, I like Joe Biden. I met him at a party. He was like, Ingram, hey, how you been? I was like, how the kids? Even Laura Ingraham said she likes Joe Biden. The reason why Joe Biden isn't wildly more successful in politics is because he gaffes all the time. And he is getting up there in age. That is a real thing. And he doesn't necessarily exude competence or faith in his ability to actually perform on the job of president or anything else, really. If he were a little bit more competent, I'd pretty much say he could easily beat Trump. He would beat Trump. So it's going to be a struggle, no matter what. It's going to be a struggle for the Democrats in the final analysis. But it'll be a lot more of a struggle for Elizabeth Warren. And more importantly, why she's going to struggle to win the nomination is because now she's going to have enemies. Look in the months to come. Bet you $1,000 you're going to start seeing hit pieces on Elizabeth Warren. You know, who there might be some news outlets that are on her side or in her camp, like CNN. I'm not exactly sure who CNN is pimping for these days. I don't really know. I used to watch CNN all the time. I haven't watched them in a long time. So I don't know who CNN is pimping for. But whoever isn't pimping for Elizabeth Warren, look for really big hit pieces in the months to come. And look for her to really, really not negotiate them successfully. They're going to trip her up. She's not good at that type of stuff. She's flat-footed politician just like Hillary Clinton was. You know? She's going to struggle to finesse when the hit piece comes out by like MSNBC because they want Bernie Sanders. So I don't know. I don't know who's rooting for who. But whoever is not rooting for Elizabeth Warren is right now really, really alarmed at the prospect of her becoming the nominee. And that will show up in the months to come. And that's going to throw her. And I don't see how she grows her core support absent Bernie Sanders leaving the race. I really don't. I don't see where her new support comes from. Unless Kamala Harris drops out of the race, you know, debatably she'd get all her supporters. Some of them might, debatably. So, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. That is all for now, kids. You know, keep your eyes on the nominating process. I still say Joe Biden is the odds-on favorite, but Elizabeth Warren is looking like a strong second. As I said 3 weeks ago, it's looking more like she's a strong second. But here come the knives. That's all I'm saying. Here come the knives, and I'm not entirely convinced she's going to handle them correctly or well. And the knives might cut and hurt. You know, part of why Kamala Harris is out of the picture is because of Tulsi Gabbard's devastating takedown. By the way, it looks like Tulsi Gabbard, if Tulsi Gabbard needs to make this next debate, or there's no chance that she could become the nominee. If she makes the next debate, she has an outside chance, small chance of becoming the nominee. But it's not clear to me that she's going to make the debate. You know, part of the reason why Kamala Harris is disappearing is because Kamala Harris, when she had that takedown, she couldn't handle it correctly. You know, not everybody is good at politics. There's a time in politics where you get attacked, where someone does the hit piece on you, and you have to be able to finesse it. And that's an important skill in politics, and I do not see Elizabeth Warren, I do not foresee her being good at that. Honestly, I see her probably being just as bad as Kamala Harris was. Which means I still put Joe Biden as the odds-on favorite to win the nomination. You know, we'll see. We'll see. If he keeps making gaffes, there's going to be another set of alarm bells going off, and they're going to try to draft somebody from outside to enter the race. But we'll see. We'll see. That's my analysis thus far. We'll see how it plays out. That is all, kids.